My name is Darren. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's video is yet another stage of our progress through the operatic world of vocal horsepower, one of the 3 types of opera singing among the 9 elements of opera. This will be our 5th episode. During the initial 2 episodes, I explained what vocal horsepower was, and during the past 2 episodes, we got to experience what vocal horsepower was like. For this episode, we'll experience another type of vocal horsepower. Before we begin on this new type of vocal horsepower, allow me to explain what it is to those of you who might be joining us for the first time. Vocal horsepower is a type of opera singing which is defined by penetrative power and weight. Together, both the penetrative power and weight of an opera singer with vocal horsepower can leave 4 types of effect on the listener. These types are 1. The drilling of the voice into the listener's body. 2. The continuation of the ring in the listener's ears for a handful of seconds even after the vocal tsunami has crashed onto him. 3. The electric current generated. And 4. The adrenaline produced by the listener's body in a reaction to the high notes. Vocal horsepower is capable of working like a drug at times. The easiest way to experience vocal horsepower is through the singing of a dramatic tenor, the tenors with the most vocal horsepower. Such tenors have the weightiest voices, which generally have the most penetrative power. Hence, to let you experience what vocal horsepower is like, I've been taking you through operas with leading roles for dramatic tenors. Previously, I mentioned that there are 2 such operas which stand above them all because their dramatic tenor roles require the most vocal horsepower. We covered one of those, Verdi's Otello, in the past 2 episodes. In this episode, we'll be covering the other one, Puccini's Turandot. The dramatic tenor role in this opera is the unknown prince, or in Italian, Il Principe Ignoto. Although in the operatic world, Puccini's Turandot is of a similar standing as Verdi's Otello, but in terms of popular awareness, Turandot is a lot more famous. Firstly, one of the Mission Impossible movies had a scene in an opera house which happened to be during a Turandot performance. Secondly, and more importantly, ever since 3 men advanced in years came out of nowhere to sing one of the Unknown Prince's arias at a concert during the World Cup, it's become so widely known. The dramatic tenor which we heard in Verdi's Otello, Mario del Monaco did sing the role of the Unknown Prince in a handful of productions in his early years during the late 40s and early 50s, with Maria Callas as one of his Turandots. However, when a few opera houses wanted to revive the opera in the late 1950s, Del Monaco had to turn them down, so another dramatic tenor took over. This dramatic tenor would eventually be so successful that the Unknown Prince continues to be one of his calling card roles even today when he's long passed away. That tenor's name was Franco Corelli. Corelli later became the world's top dramatic tenor in Italian opera during the 1960s. He was another titan who proved a formidable rival to Del Monaco. Both of them shared many roles. A good number of Corelli's performances in these roles, live and studio, were just as legendary as Del Monaco's classic renditions. They remain highly viable alternatives. If you remember Del Monaco from our videos on Verdi's Otello, his voice sounded as though it had a bright polish to it, and his portrayal of the title role made us think that he plays his characters like they are heroes. Corelli is quite different. Later, when you listen to one of his performances as the Unknown Prince, which we'll be presenting you with shortly, you'll hear that his voice sounds raw instead. Besides being raw, you'll also be able to hear that Corelli's voice also contains a fair amount of animal spirit and/or energy. This animal spirit and/or energy, as well as his film star looks, make it highly convincing when he plays his characters like they are lovers. The rawness of Corelli's voice, its animal spirit and/or energy, and this ardent approach together make the Unknown Prince a perfect fit for him. We were already very fortunate when the Japanese preserved their film of Del Monaco's 1959 live Tokyo performance as Otello. We are just as fortunate when the Italian television studio RAI invited Corelli to participate in one of their experiments in performing opera on television. This experiment, a complete Turandot from 1958, will be the featured performance for today's episode. Now let's go straight into it. The opera opens with a mandarin reading an imperial edict to the people of Peking. This Peking is not a historical Beijing under an earlier dynasty. It's a fantasy Peking from the imagination of the Italian playwright whose play of the same title was the source for this opera. That play was written in the second half of the 1700s when whatever knowledge of China was heavily influenced by Marco Polo's adventures, so it isn't surprising if it strays far from reality. Anyway, back to the Mandarin. This imperial edict stated that anybody from a royal family who wishes to seek the imperial princess Turandot's hand in marriage will have to answer 3 of her riddles. Failure to answer any of them will result in him losing his head. A royal suitor, the Prince of Persia, is Turandot's latest victim. He is to be led to his beheading. Similar to how the people of Rome bayed for blood in the Colosseum, the people of Peking crowd to watch the prince. A commotion breaks out when the guards try to keep them away. An old blind man, Timur, loses his footing. Timur's servant, Liu, shouts for help. The unknown prince, who happened to be in the same crowd, comes to Timur's assistance. It turns out that their son and father, who had been separated for quite some time. Both have been hiding in Peking from their enemies who had driven them from their homeland. Timur introduces Liu to the unknown prince as the girl who's been looking after him since he was forced to flee into exile. All of them continue watching the Prince of Persia as his executioners prepare for his beheading. From this point is a series of choral scenes for Puccini. Choral scenes are usually fillers to enable the stars to take breathers or to relieve tension. Most of the great Italian opera composers were masters of the theatre. They had their fingers on their audience's pulses. The composers knew when to insert scenes to prepare them for the drama to come or to allow them to relax. In the tragic operas, there are several dramatic moments, scenes, solo pieces and ensembles scattered throughout. For every dramatic moment, the composers would raise the tension to please and move the audiences. Of course, the composers would bring up the dramatic temperature and hold it there. Yet they were aware that their audiences can only take in this amount of drama before they'll become saturated. Saturation's not a good thing because anything at that point will be lost on the audiences even if whatever they've lined up is actually twice as powerful or more than the numbers the audiences have heard. In this case, there's going to be a very intense scene right after the choral scenes, so this will be a good time for unwinding should you ever watch the opera in full. The choral scenes also serve another purpose, which is to add local colour or to build up the atmosphere. For Puccini, atmosphere is very important since this is what determines how he'll design the various characters in the opera. At the same time, it also determines what the rest of the opera is going to be like, musically and to some extent dramatically. In the earlier part of the opera, we already saw 2 earlier choral scenes with the people of Peking crowding to watch the Prince of Persia's execution and his executioners getting ready. Those scenes resume now. After the executioners leave to fetch the chief executioner's blade, there's a new choral scene where the people of Peking wait in anticipation of the rising moon. Night descends on the Peking in the opera. When the people of Peking finish singing about their wait for the moon, a group of boys sing praises of Turandot's beauty. The Prince of Persia is now ready to receive his sentence on the execution platform. The people of Peking, together with the unknown prince, express their sympathy for the Prince of Persia, begging Turandot to grant him clemency to no avail. Turandot appears briefly under the moonlight to give the signal for the beheading of the Prince of Persia. The beauty of Turandot bewitches the unknown prince. This is why the atmosphere has to be a nocturnal one. Night is a time for dreams, a time for romance. It is against the backdrop of night when Turandot's beauty can take on a dreamlike quality to such an extent that it can cast a strong spell on the unknown prince. Upon being bewitched, the unknown prince becomes possessed with an obsessive desire to seek her hand in marriage. It's this desire that sparks off the rest of the opera. The backdrop of night also awakens the unknown prince's powers of seduction. Hence, his music, which we shall listen to later, is charged to the max with overflowing passion. It's even capable of taking on a sensual and erotic quality, which Corelli well demonstrates through his animalistic singing, as we will hear shortly. The people of Peking disperse when Turandot has confirmed the fate of the Prince of Persia, leaving the unknown prince, Timur and Liu. In a daze, The unknown prince moves towards a gong for any wannabe royal suitor interested in taking up Turandot's challenge. Timur and Liu are unable to stop him. The unknown prince expresses his resolve by crying out Turandot's name at the top of his voice.
Io soffro, padre, soffro, mi salvezza non c'è. Ah, padre, qui,
It's thrilling just to hear Corelli go full blast with his enormous voice as he shouts. You can feel the adrenaline rush and or the electric current course through your body when you listen to him release his vast reserves of vocal horsepower like that. This is one reason why Corelli was so successful in the role. It offered him several opportunities to open his vocal floodgates just like that. This excerpt is merely the first. There will be more to follow. A new set of characters, Turandot's three ministers, Ping, Pang and Pong, together known as the Mask, enter to block the unknown prince's attempt. Whereas Timur and Liu were pleading with the unknown prince to change his mind, the Mask have a more creative approach. They first try to scare him off by graphically describing the tortures Turandot has in store for him and where his body will land up if he loses her challenge. It doesn't work on the unknown prince. They then try to appeal to his sense of reason by telling him Turandot's only a mere human and you have the life to enjoy more beauties if he walks away from the challenge. It still doesn't work on the unknown prince. The confrontation between him and the Mask is so noisy that Turandot's handmaidens step in to quieten them down. The unknown prince starts to hesitate when the handmaidens drop a comment in passing about the darkness surrounding Turandot. Such hesitations are banished after he hears the voices of the ghost of the suitors before him who pick this time to converge onto the scene. The Mask try one last time to stop the unknown prince by proclaiming Turandot doesn't exist. Even that and the executioner displaying the head of the Prince of Persia don't work on him. Timur and Liu plead with the unknown prince to change his mind. Liu's plea is the first aria for this opera. Liu is one of the gentle, loving, submissive and feminine characters which are typical of Puccini's operas. They were the type of characters he excelled most in creating. When Puccini writes their music, he goes straight for our heartstrings. Their music is so heavily loaded with emotion that it spills over into our hearts. Puccini composes his melodies in such a way that the emotion he intends to convey instinctively comes upon us. All this might sound a little intellectual, but once you hear the aria for yourself, you'll be able to understand what I mean in an instant. Now I'll give you its best excerpt, its closing lines. The unknown prince responds to Liu's touching aria with an aria as moving. His powers of seduction being fully awakened, this aria where he bids farewell to Liu as he's about to embark on his quest for Turandot's hand in marriage sounds like a lover's farewell. The unknown prince begins by calming her.
Piangere Liu, sei in un lontano giorno io t'ho sorriso, per quel sorriso dolce
The scene we've just listened to is so emotional that even when I first heard this many years ago, at a time when I was starting to know what were the matters of the heart, this could still pull my heartstrings. I was only in my early teens then. If it can have such impact, can you imagine how much more impact it have on someone much older and more experienced? The nocturnal atmosphere created by the orchestra is in full bloom, and Corelli responds with a voice that matches in splendor. His singing here overflows with a passion that stimulates the senses and to some extent even excites the appetites. We'll now hear him sing an excerpt from the second part of this aria where he entrusts Liu with the care of his father.
Oh mia povera Liu, al tuo piccolo cuore che non cade, piede che vuoi, che non s'arride più, che
Did you hear the closing line where Corelli releases another thrilling note? Did you also remember the last line where the soprano singing the role of Liu, Mattioli, made one of her notes float in the aria she sang? This is the fun of the Italian opera, where the composers write in a few notes to let the singers have a chance to showcase their voices, knowing how much it will delight us and anybody else who listens to their music. Liu's and the Unknown Princess arias kick off the finale for the first act of this opera. After the Unknown Princess aria, Timur, Liu and the mask, who see that his resolve in proceeding with his quest is immovable, all join forces with the chorus to persuade him to stop. When we listen to the finale, it's like we're immersed in a pool of sound generated by the singers. The level keeps rising as the singers pass the musical spotlight among themselves. What I mean by the musical spotlight is how one of the singers is made to sound clearer and louder than the others at any one point, with the mask being counted as one, despite all of them singing simultaneously. You can feel the ripples in this pool of sound set off by the back and forth motion of the singers passing the spotlight. The level reaches its high water mark at the point when the unknown prince, yelling Turandot's name, beats the gong 3 times to announce his intention of taking up her challenge. It's exciting to hear Corelli hitting that gong in a fury while holding that note at the top of his voice towards the end. This is literally vocal athleticism, as vivid an example of vocal horsepower that you can ever get. The finale concludes with a blast of fanfare acknowledging the unknown prince's intention. The second act of Puccini's Turandot is the act where the unknown prince will face Turandot's 3 riddles. 3 riddles you have to answer correctly, with no wrong answers, or he'll have to forfeit his head. The scene where the unknown prince will be faced with the riddles, known as the riddle scene, is another sensational scene on the same level as the finale we just heard. The finale we listened to has worn up our nerves. Any more stimulus and there'll be a sensory overload, so Puccini inserts a comparatively light-hearted musical number in between. This number is a charming trio sung by the mask. In Turandot, we've already seen 2 types of characters, the heroic unknown prince and the pitiful Liu. The mask are a third type of character, the comical. Although this trio thus has as much significance as, if not more than, Liu's and the unknown prince's arias earlier, we'll not be covering them here. since the focus of this introduction is on the heroic unknown prince. This is after all an introduction to vocal horsepower. Perhaps if there's time someday, we may relook at the music of the Mask in another separate episode. This act of the opera is set in the Imperial Palace in Peking, while the earlier act was set outside the palace. After the trio of the Mask, the scene is ready for the unknown prince to face Turandot's 3 riddles. He's at the foot of a staircase, with the Emperor Autumn sitting on his throne on top, presiding over the unknown prince's challenge. Autumn tries to convince the unknown prince to withdraw from the challenge, but the unknown prince insists. Autumn reluctantly orders that the challenge begins. The Mandarin opens by reading out the rules of the challenge. When it's finished, Turandot makes her entrance. She, as the protagonist, is the last character to appear musically. Up to this point, we've heard the music of 2 dramatic tenors, Otello and the Unknown Prince, represented by Mario del Monaco in the previous videos, and Franco Corelli in this video. We've also heard the music of a dramatic baritone, Iago, represented by Tito Gobi in the previous videos as well. You might be wondering if there's a dramatic soprano role, since the soprano role in the previous videos, Desdemona, is a lyric soprano, and Liu, whom we listened to not long ago, sounds like her. Turandot, whom we'll be listening to in next, is a dramatic soprano role. To recap what are dramatic sopranos, or if you're new to this term, I'll bring out the table I used earlier on to illustrate the various weight categories which exist for most classes of opera singers such as tenors, baritones, and sopranos. This table moves from the singers with the lightest voices on the left, the lyric singers, to the singers with the heaviest voices on the right, the dramatic singers. In the case of the sopranos, just ignore the last column, heroic, for the time being, because it will only make things unnecessarily more complicated at this point. In the operatic context, a heavy voice isn't a voice which sings to the bottom. Voices which sing to the bottom are deep voices which belong to other classes of opera singers. Heavy voices are hefty or bulky voices. Therefore, dramatic sopranos have the heftiest or bulkiest voices. These sopranos usually have the most vocal horsepower, since the heft or bulk of their voices enable their voices to penetrate deeper and with more force than their lyric or spinto counterparts. Turandot is a dramatic soprano role because the upcoming Riddle scene requires a singer with a huge amount of vocal horsepower. When I walk you through this scene later, I'll point out why this is the case. Among the soprano roles, Turandot has a reputation comparable to Verdi's Otello and the Unknown Prince in the tenor's repertoire. It's at the peak of the soprano's repertoire, which only a few star sopranos have thrived in. In today's performance, our Turandot for today is Lucille Udovic, an American dramatic soprano who's of star quality but whose career was prematurely shortened by illness. She will make her entrance with the character's first solo musical number. This is a good chance for us to enjoy the singing of a dramatic soprano, so I'll be discussing her performance at length. Turandot opens with a recitative, a narrative which is sung in a way that imitates speaking. Turandot justifies her cruel game by mentioning a tragic incident in the empire's history which haunts her till this day. This incident concerns her ancestress, Princess Lu Ling, who once ruled the country in peace and bliss, strongly protecting her authority. The first part of the narrative I especially want to single out, the part where she mentions how the princess tragedy continues to haunt her. Udovic will begin the excerpt very forcefully when Turandot reminds the audience not to forget the princess tragedy. Yet, like a master, she softens her tone for the remaining section when a character sings how she's taken the princess tragedy to heart over the years. Udovic sang the first section with such emphasis that the singing stopped just short of lapsing into shouting. In that section, she reminded the audience not to forget the princess tragedy. I like that demonstration of the robustness of her voice, yet the same voice was also capable of tenderness and sweetness. After this excerpt, Turandot proclaims her admiration for the princess' power. Then she continues her narrative about how the princess was eventually defeated in battle by a male ruler. The second part of the narrative, I especially want to single out, the part where she recalls the princess' defeat. As Ludovic sings, her singing becomes more and more agitated. It's as though her character's increasingly scared that the princess' tragedy will repeat itself on her. In this excerpt, Ludovic's voice goes sharper and sharper. You can feel its penetrating power. It enables you to sense the fear of defeat building in Turandot's heart. Turandot ends her narrative by describing how the princess was murdered by the ruler who captured her in battle. After the recitative, Turandot commences her aria. She now sings about the present. She sings about the string of royal suitors who'd come to seek her hand in marriage in the past. Then she expresses her grim satisfaction that she has punished all of them for their impudence in courting her by making them pay with their lives. Ludovic concludes the expression of satisfaction with the display of vocal horsepower that's as marvelous as Corelli's extraordinary displays. Isn't it interesting that the soprano, the powerhouse tenor's going to pit himself against, pushed to be a singer as formidable? It makes you really look forward to the moment when these two singers engage in vocal combat. The vocal combat will come, but first, let us hear Ludovic launch herself into the second half of Turandot's aria. In this half, she asserts that she will not let herself fall into the hands of any man. Ludovic's voice acquires a warm, rich colour that corresponds with the radiant music from the orchestra. Turandot's aria finishes with vocal combat between her and the unknown prince. She threatens him with death. He rebuts her. They clash to see whose voice can overpower the others. It takes one breath away when one hears two vocal forces of nature striving against one another. You can imagine the tremors they send through the floor and the vibrations they leave on the walls. Just as the unknown prince is resolved to win her heart, Turandot is equally bent on denying him. She might be cruel, she might be arrogant, but I feel we have to respect her for her fiery determination in not allowing anyone to control her destiny. Once Turandot and the unknown prince are done with their vocal duel, it's time for the riddle scene. In this scene, the music for each of the riddles and their answers is the same, so we'll only be listening to the last of them. The unknown prince has solved the first two riddles. Turandot starting to become worried. She descends from the top of the staircase where she had been standing with Autumn as a member of the imperial family. Turandot delivers the final riddle. Every riddle has to be delivered from the staircase with powerful emphasis, proud imperial dignity, as well as authority, clarity and volume, so you can understand why the soprano needs to have a huge amount of vocal horsepower to play this role. The first part of the riddle is about ice that burns with a cold flame. The second part of the riddle is that this ice can transform one into a slave and a king at the same time. When Turandot has delivered her riddle, she taunts the unknown prince. Turandot tries to bully the unknown prince into answering her riddle. To the accompaniment of hair-raising music which keeps us in nervous suspense and reflects the tension in the unknown prince, he answers Turandot's riddle. As the unknown prince answers her riddles, he always links her answers to his confident belief that he has what it takes to conquer her heart. His answer to this riddle is Turandot. You can perceive the unknown prince's confidence from Corelli's highly masculine singing, which carries just as much emphasis, conviction, clarity and volume as Udovic's. The unknown prince has given the correct answer. However, he can't claim Turandot as his prize just yet. Turandot implores Autumn not to honor the terms of the challenge, but Autumn is adamant. She refuses to admit defeat. The unknown prince is determined to win her heart. He will not be contented with a mere person alone. Both characters feel equally strongly about this. Udovic and Corelli both portray their outbursts of emotion with final salvos of brilliant high notes for this scene. Corelli seems superhuman here from the way he held those high notes for such an insanely long period of time. We've heard him do that quite a few times prior to this, but this time I think it's special, since it shows the unknown prince in all his glory after triumphing over Turandot. The unknown prince ultimately issues Turandot a riddle in order to put her in a situation where she'll have no choice but to submit to him. She'll have to guess his name by sunrise the next day. If she succeeds, he'll give up his life. Otherwise, she'll have to give in to him. Turandot accepts the unknown prince's offer. The second act thus ends. It has been sensational. Not only have Turandot and the unknown prince amazed us with their generous servings of high notes, but they've also impressed us greatly with their sheer vocal horsepower throughout. Judging by Turandot's reaction after losing the challenge, she'll stop at nothing to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. The last act of the opera opens with town criers going around Peking, shouting her latest order. No one's to sleep that night in Peking. They'll have to spend the night prying the name of the unknown prince or they'll be massacred. Turandot is so predictable. The first few lines of Turandot's latest order open the aria which commences this act. This aria is the most famous musical number from the opera. Since the three opera veterans stepped out to sing it, it has acquired a life of its own. It's become a classic crossover number. It's become a staple number in the concert repertoire of any tenor able to sing it live. It's become so renowned you might have heard it without knowing its origin. If you think the version by the three veterans was outstanding, wait till you listen to this one by Corelli. This is the classic version. If not, this is the gold standard at least. What about the version by the three opera veterans? There's no doubt they were the ones who introduced the aria to audiences worldwide. However, in their time, Turandot was already familiar to opera listeners. The opera was already established in the international operatic repertoire. It was Corelli who contributed a lot in establishing the opera. Before his time, the opera's presence was irregular. Corelli's performances changed that. From his singing until now, you can understand why. His performance is spectacular. Next will be his finishing move. When the aria begins, the orchestra paints the starry night sky, which acts as the backdrop for the unknown prince's aria by causing us to think of that image. He calls out romantically to Turandot. Corelli sings like a poet in love.
Nessun dorma, nessun dorma. Tu pure, o principessa, nella tua fredda stanza.
The unknown prince expresses his confidence that his name will stay secret, which he'll reveal once he can claim Turandot as his prize when the sun is up. Corelli sings with a voice filled to the brim with hope. When he sings about the part the unknown prince can claim Turandot, this hope pours out at certain points in the form of robust high notes. As a side note, this aria is a love song, but I think it works as well as a song on the hope of victory. The part we just heard translates as, "But the mystery of mine is closed within me, this name of mine no one will know. No, no, on the mouth of yours I will say it when the light shines." It's as though the unknown prince is the underdog. If you see the aria as a standalone song on hope, even the romantic call to Turandot can be viewed as the call to the person the singer cares about most, who is awake through the night before the big day, bearing high hopes for their victory. The name to be revealed to Turandot can be viewed as a solemn declaration of victory to that person on the big day is attained. A song like that, when Corelli sings it here with such feeling, is bound to have impact. In a bid to reassure himself, the unknown prince sings the next part about how he can't wait for the big day to arrive when he's certain he will win. Corelli sings with such eagerness that it's as though he's aiming to use his miraculous voice to banish the night so the big day will arrive sooner. He sings about the certainty of his victory with a conviction capable of bringing the house down. Doesn't the final word of the aria, vincero or I shall win in Italian, have the effect of a war cry on you? No wonder the three opera veterans sang it to mark the 1990 World Cup in Rome. Corelli's war cry is so potent, it can send audiences into a frenzy, as it did on a live recording I heard. After the Unknown Prince's second aria, there's another musical number coming up which approaches the same level. Just like how the trio of the mask was inserted between the first act finale and Turandot's solo showpiece, a scene with the mask is inserted here. The mask are now here with the people of Peking to persuade the unknown prince to reveal his name so that they can save their own lives. With the appearance of the mask, we can expect to hear some amusing music. The mask try bribing the unknown prince with stunningly attractive harem girls as well as treasures. He will not be swayed. The mask tries suggesting to the unknown prince that they'll help him run away from Turandot in case she finds out his name. They then try appealing to his heroic spirit by urging him to take pity on the dreadful tortures Turandot has reserved for them if they fail to persuade him. He answers that they can say anything but it's not going to make any difference. Seeing that nothing will work, the mask march out the wounded Timur and Liu, whom they had captured earlier. The unknown prince protests that they don't know his name, demanding that they be released. The mask decide to summon Turandot to settle this. Turandot reaches the scene. The mask report that they failed to persuade the unknown prince, asking for a permission to extract his name through torture. Turandot mocks him for turning white. The unknown prince retorts that the whiteness on his face is caused by the approach of dawn. Turandot orders that the mask torture Timur first. Liu interjects that she has the honor of being the only one who knows his name. The crowd calls for her torture. The unknown prince tries to save her, but Turandot's guards stop him at her command. The mask demand that Liu reveal the unknown prince's name, but Liu refuses to cooperate. Turandot's guards start to apply torture on her. Liu cries out in pain. She tells the guards to exert more force so she won't have to suffer for long anymore. Turandot orders that they release her. She asks Liu what makes her able to withstand such suffering. Liu answers that it's love which helps her endure. Liu sings a second aria here where she describes how love helps her endure in greater detail. The pain of her not being able to confess her love to the unknown prince has been so great that the pain from the tortures is relatively pleasant. Nevertheless, Liu's happy to have suffered because by keeping silent and stepping back, she's allowing the unknown prince to woo Turandot, and she's also buying time till dawn for him. She concludes her aria by urging the guards to torture her more so she can sacrifice her life for her beloved unknown prince. The music for this aria though is ordinary when compared with the music for her earlier aria, so I don't think there's any need to present any examples from it. Besides, it might detract from her next aria. Turandot is infuriated by Liu's answer. She orders that the subordinates compel her to reveal the unknown prince's name. They call for the executioner. Liu decides to talk. She sings her third aria. In the first part of this aria, Liu sings that Turandot, the icy princess, will be subdued by the fire of the unknown prince's love. The heartbreaking music reflects the state of her heart. It's as though it's dying from despair and misery. In the second part of this aria, Liu bids farewell to life and to the unknown prince in utter grief. As Liu's grief builds up, her music becomes heavier with emotion until it reaches a height. It gives me the impression that Puccini is about to send her off in a grand manner. Enough, Liu lays her hands on a dagger belonging to one of Turandot's guards and stabs herself. She staggers to the unknown prince and dies in front of him. Liu's suicide shocks Turandot. The scene severely upsets her. The unknown prince and Timur are released. Turandot's guilty conscience starts to work on her. Timur, the mask, and the people of Peking all mourn over the recently deceased Liu. They exit the scene in a funeral procession, bearing her body away for burial. With Liu's funeral procession, I will end the opera here. Puccini only managed to compose the opera up to this point, since he was struck by cancer when he was still working on what was supposed to be the last musical highlight for this opera. He unfortunately died from an operation to remove the tumor, leaving this highlight unfinished. The last musical highlight was to be a love duet between Turandot and the unknown prince. Heartless though it may sound, after Liu sacrificed her life for him, the unknown prince was to take advantage of the impact of Liu's death on Turandot to chase her heart. Turandot was to reject his advances, but the unknown prince, determined to claim his prize, was to overcome her rejection with a passionate kiss. Melting from his kiss, Turandot was to concede to the unknown prince. The unknown prince was to pick that moment to reveal his name Kalaf. They were then to come before the people of Peking, now united as lovers. Today, despite Puccini leaving the love duet incomplete, we are able to hear it because the composer Franco was later recruited by Puccini's son and the conductor Toscanini to complete it based on Puccini's drafts. Puccini had hired Toscanini to lead the premiere. However, there's some controversy about the love duet because there are multiple versions of it. Toscanini rejected Alfano's original version of the love duet, forcing him to shorten it. This condensed version was adapted by most subsequent performances of the opera until the original version was rediscovered in recent years. Some may use the traditional condensed version, while others may use the rediscovered original version. In view of the variety of versions available, I've decided to avoid controversy by adopting Toscanini's practice of stopping the opera at the point Puccini left it when he premiered it. Together with the trio of the mask, the different versions of the closing love duet may be discussed in another video. During the past 3 episodes, we've covered the 2 operas that form the twin peaks of the dramatic tenor's repertoire, Verdi's Otello and Puccini's Turandot. For the next opera to be covered in this mini-series, I'll be covering another opera in the dramatic tenor's repertoire which, unlike Otello and Turandot, can be sung by a spinto tenor. Spinto tenors are those belonging to the weight class directly below dramatic tenors. At the same time, to introduce you to various great singers, this new opera will be featuring another legend, one of the 3 opera veterans I mentioned earlier. If you had fun watching this video, please help me like it. If you'd like to continue chasing this series, please subscribe to my channel. If you wish to express your views about it or discuss it further, please feel free to leave a comment. Thank you, and stay tuned.